Most men believe that when she leaves, her world will fall apart. That loneliness, guilt, and regret will swallow her whole. But what really happens is quieter, colder, and far more unsettling. Divorce doesn't just end a marriage. It wakes something ancient inside her, an instinct older than the vows she broke. You can see it in her eyes a few weeks after she walks away. Something shifts. The woman you knew starts to fade, and another one begins to rise. It looks like chaos, but it's not. It's a pattern. Her comfort collapses, her status drops, her finances tighten, and the safety she once took for granted turns fragile. Behind every new smile, there's panic, the kind that hides behind a fresh haircut and a forced laugh. And that's when the escape begins. She calls it freedom, the thrill of being seen again, the rush of new faces, the noise that drowns out the silence. But underneath the makeup, the trips, the captions about new beginnings, it isn't confidence, it's anesthesia. It's what pain looks like when it's dressed up as liberation. History's seen this before, widows in plague-stricken London rushing into new arms. Not for passion, but for survival. The world changes, but instinct doesn't. What once played out in whispers now plays out online, filtered through beaches, bars, and smiles that don't quite reach the eyes. Every man, every post, every night out, it's not about love. It's about proof. Proof she's still wanted, still relevant, still alive. But validation fades. The faces blur. The noise dies. And when the silence returns, it's heavier than before, because the woman she becomes after the divorce was always there, waiting beneath the surface. You didn't change her. You just revealed her. And that, brother, is where your freedom begins. Number 1. Why her freedom is just fear in disguise. After the divorce, she doesn't collapse. Not yet. What comes first looks a lot like rebirth. There's a new glow about her, the kind that makes outsiders whisper that she's finally happy again. She cuts her hair, buys new clothes, posts pictures with smiles that look effortless. Her friends comment about new beginnings, and for a while, she believes it too. But that shine you see in her eyes, it isn't peace. It's panic disguised as freedom. Because the truth is, the silence she's running from hasn't disappeared. It's just been buried under noise. She tells herself she's rediscovering who she is, but that version of self she's chasing isn't real. It's reaction. Every dinner out, every new flirtation, every weekend getaway is a rebellion against the stillness she can't stand. The pain of loss doesn't vanish. It just changes shape. She fills her days with distractions, with the company of people who make her feel seen again. For a moment, it works. Attention feels like air to someone who's been suffocating in invisibility. Each compliment, each new message, each man who calls her beautiful becomes proof that she's still wanted, still valuable. But the truth behind all of it is darker. She's not chasing love, she's chasing validation. The comfort she once found in security is replaced by the thrill of being desired. And the more she tastes it, the more she needs it. Psychologists might call it a short-term coping mechanism, but men who've lived through it know it for what it is, a high. She's addicted to the feeling of being chosen, because deep down, she still feels abandoned. In another century, women sought survival through remarriage. Today, it's the same instinct dressed in modern clothes. The widows of London once clung to merchants and officers. Now it's Instagram followers and casual connections. The theater has changed, but the play hasn't. The woman who once built her world around family now builds it around attention, the kind that vanishes by morning. She posts pictures with captions about healing and freedom, but inside, she's just trying to silence the ache that keeps whispering. This isn't happiness, it's distraction. For a while, she outruns the truth. The nights are loud, the drinks are strong, and the attention feels endless. But every drug wears off, and when this one fades, the emptiness returns heavier now, because it comes with the quiet realization that nothing out there has truly filled the hole inside her. The laughter begins to sound hollow. The new faces start to blur. Even the compliments lose their power. That's when the party begins to end. Not with a scream, but a sigh. A slow burnout of the soul. The silence she's been avoiding finally catches up, and there's nowhere left to hide. What began as freedom now feels like exhaustion. The mask slips. And for the first time, she sees the reflection she's been running from all along. The woman who once felt reborn now feels restless again. But this time, the restlessness carries something heavier: resentment. And if this truth hit you somewhere deep, brother, take a moment to do me a small favor. Hit like, subscribe, and share this message. Your simple action can help more people who are struggling with this issue find the content they need. Thank you for being a part of this. Number 2. When the noise dies and the truth creeps in. And every storm runs out of rain. Every high burns itself to ash. For her, the crash doesn't come as a single moment. It creeps in quietly, like a cold draft under a locked door. The nights out start to feel repetitive. The music she once drowned in now grates on her nerves. The laughter she faked so effortlessly begins to echo hollow. There's no tragedy, no breakdown, just the slow, inevitable return of silence. The same silence she's been running from since the day she walked away. At first, she tries to outrun it again. Another trip, another fling, another glass of wine, another caption about strength and self-love. But none of it works anymore. The excitement that once felt like oxygen now feels forced, like she's gasping for air in a room that's already empty. The truth is catching up, step by step, and she knows it. You can see it in her eyes, that distant stare that lingers a little too long after the laughter stops. Because somewhere deep inside, she senses it. The freedom she thought she wanted has turned into isolation. This is where bitterness begins. Not the loud kind that shouts or blames, the quiet kind that seeps in. It shows itself in small ways, in how she talks about the past, and how she rewrites the story. Because when the pain becomes unbearable and there's no one left to distract her from it, the mind searches for an escape route, and the easiest escape is to rewrite reality. It's easier to believe she was betrayed than to admit she's lost. Easier to paint you as the villain than to face her own regret. She tells herself she gave everything, that she was patient, kind, and forgiving until you ruined it. It's not malice that drives her, it's survival. To protect herself from guilt, she reconstructs the past into something she can live with. You become the reason for the collapse, the explanation for her unhappiness, the villain in a story she must retell to make sense of it all. And the more she repeats it, the more she believes it. This is what psychologists call narrative rewriting, but in real life, it feels like gaslighting from someone you once loved. One day, you realize the woman you shared years with no longer remembers the same marriage. The memories are edited not by lies, but by pain. To her, you didn't try, you failed. You didn't love, you controlled. You didn't care, you drained her. And no matter how much you explain, the truth no longer matters. The story has already hardened. For her, this is the only way to survive the emotional fallout. Because if she accepted the full picture, her own choices, her own flaws, the pieces she broke, she'd have to face a kind of grief she's not built to handle. So she hides behind a new identity, the woman who escaped, the one who overcame, the survivor. It gives her strength, but it costs her honesty. And that's the real tragedy. Not that she hates you, but that she has to. Because hatred is easier than heartbreak. Blame is easier than regret. And that's what the crash really is to us. Not just the fall from excitement, but the collapse of truth itself. From here, something else begins to rise, not healing, not clarity, but a fortress, one built from resentment, designed to protect her from ever feeling powerless again. Number 3. How she turns pain into your fault. Once the story hardens, it stops being a coping mechanism and becomes a home cold, quiet, and made of stone. She builds it slowly, piece by piece, using every memory that once connected you to her. Every argument becomes a brick. Every disappointment becomes cement. Every shadow of pain is repurposed into proof that you were the cause. What used to be love now becomes architecture, the construction of a fortress. And inside those walls, you are no longer a man. You are a symbol, an image that carries all the weight she refuses to bear. In that fortress, logic doesn't live. Facts don't matter. The story rules everything. She tells it to her friends, to her family, to herself over and over, until it stops sounding like pain and starts sounding like truth. Each retelling strengthens the walls, sealing her further inside. When something goes wrong in her life, the fortress gives her comfort. If money is tight, it's your fault. If she feels lonely, it's because you wasted her years. If her children struggle, it's because of the damage you caused. The narrative becomes armor, and she wears it everywhere she goes. The danger of this fortress isn't just that it keeps you out. It keeps her trapped inside. The bitterness that once protected her now begins to consume her. She rehearses her resentment daily, sometimes quietly, sometimes in conversations disguised as concern. She becomes fluent in the language of grievance. Every story she tells about her life has you as its antagonist. Even her victories, her independence, her so-called healing, they exist only in contrast to you. You become the ghost that defines her, the shadow that follows her into every room. And in time, even her children start to hear the echoes. Not always directly, not through open hostility, but through small, consistent messages. A sigh when your name is mentioned. A quiet you know how your father is. Little fragments of bitterness that settle into their minds like dust. She may not intend to poison them against you, but the fortress demands loyalty. It cannot exist without dividing the world into sides. Inside, there's her truth. Outside, there's the enemy. What's most haunting about this stage isn't her anger, it's her conviction. She doesn't know she's trapped. To her, the walls feel like safety. The bitterness feels like strength. She's convinced that she's finally free of you. But every time she speaks your name, she proves the opposite. You've become her anchor, not through love, but through hate. And hate, brother, is just love that's been set on fire and left to burn too long. You'll try to reason, maybe once or twice. You'll think if you explain enough, show enough, she'll see the truth. But you can't reason with a fortress. Every word you speak will sound like another attack. Every defense, another form of guilt. Eventually, you'll stop trying not because you've given up, but because you've finally understood. Her story no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the walls she built to survive. And now, within those walls, something else begins to form, not chaos this time, but form, patterns, archetypes, the woman she becomes after the storm. Number 4. The 3 archetypes of the divorced woman. Every storm leaves behind a landscape changed, stripped bare, and marked by what it's endured. After all the noise and the bitterness, after the fortress is built and her story becomes gospel, she starts to settle into what remains. The chaos doesn't last forever. It hardens into form. And almost every woman, when the dust clears, becomes one of 3 archetypes. The first is the eternal victim. She never truly leaves the fortress, she decorates it, turns her pain into identity. Every conversation, every new friendship, every cause she joins, somehow loops back to the same theme: what was done to her. Her story becomes her currency. Her past becomes her badge. There's comfort in being the one who suffered, because, as long as she's the victim, she never has to risk being wrong. She finds validation and sympathy, and a strange power in her fragility. The tragedy, though, is quiet. She never grows beyond her wound. She carries it like an heirloom, polishing it, protecting it, making sure it's never forgotten. Then comes the hardened realist. She's the one who decides that love itself was the problem. So she shuts the door on it. She becomes pragmatic, efficient, independent to the point of isolation. She thrives in her career, her routines, her self-control, and for the outside world. She looks like she's winning, but her victories come at a cost. Every new connection feels like a threat to the control she fought so hard to rebuild. She trusts no one. Intimacy feels dangerous. She tells herself she's free, but in truth, she's just walled off safe, but unreachable. She's not bitter anymore, just cold. And sometimes, that's worse. And then, there's the Phoenix. Rare, uncommon, but real. She's the one who finally gets tired of her own story. The one who stops running from her reflection and decides to face it. The Phoenix doesn't rise from triumph, she rises from humility. She looks in the mirror and admits, I helped create this too. And that admission, that brutal honesty, becomes her rebirth. She stops chasing validation. She stops blaming. She learns to stand in silence without needing to be right. She rebuilds, not for approval, but for peace. And she doesn't rise to reclaim her old self. She becomes someone new entirely. These three paths don't appear overnight. They're the result of everything that came before the escape, the crash, the rewriting, the resentment. And deep down, which one she becomes was never up to you. It was decided long before the marriage even began, written in her self-awareness, her emotional discipline, her relationship with truth. The victim clings to her pain. The realist buries her heart. The Phoenix forgives herself and lets go. And while the world might praise the strong and pity the broken, the truth is quieter than that. Every woman becomes exactly who she was always meant to be when the illusion of love is stripped away. In the end, it's simple. She became who she was always going to become. You just happened to be standing close enough to see it happen. The woman who once looked at you with love had a storm buried inside her long before your name ever crossed her lips. Divorce didn't create it. It only exposed it. You can spend years trying to decode her choices, replaying every memory, arguing with the ghost of who she used to be. But that path leads nowhere, because her healing, her story, her transformation, none of it was ever yours to carry. What she lost, she has to face. What she builds, she has to build alone. And you, brother, you've got your own ashes to rise from. That's where your strength begins. Not in chasing explanations, not in waiting for apologies, but in reclaiming your silence. The kind of silence that doesn't ache anymore, it just understands. When you stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix, peace finds you. When you stop fighting for someone who already left, freedom begins to breathe again. So let her go. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Her book is finished. Yours isn't. Now turn the page. Write something honest this time. Something that's only yours. If you felt this truth, brother, stay close. There are more stories like this. Quiet ones, real ones. The kind that don't scream for attention. They speak to the part of you that's still healing. Because this is where men learn to walk again, not as broken husbands, but as whole men. Thank you for being here, brother. Every word we share here is a reminder that calm doesn't mean weak, and silence doesn't mean lost. If this resonated with you, stay a while, reflect, listen, let it settle. We're building something real, a quiet brotherhood built on truth, not noise. See you in the next video where we keep walking this path together.